Do I like journalists? Some of them. Some of them, they're a very small minority. I fell in love with Zagreb as soon as I came here. The lifestyle, the people, the way of life. But I wasn't sure where I was going to end up at the end, you know.
Mark, you own a cafe. It seems like you really put your mind to something else after football. That's so important for players, isn't it?
For me, it's refreshing to do something like that where there's no pressure. You know, you make a bad coffee, you throw it in the bin.
You make a few?
If somebody complains, you just give them the bird.
Let's talk about fun times. The qualification for the World Cup, 2005, that penalty shootout. Probably wasn't fun.
That's fun. Well, that's great fun.
Well, it wasn't when you missed the penalty.
Yeah.
But what was the feeling like when John hit that ball in the back of the net?
Oh, I was relieved, obviously, because I missed the penalty that time, and it was a huge relief for all of us. I mean, as I said, belonging to that football family for that many years and going, to all those qualifiers beforehand, the Argentina game, the Scotland games, the first Uruguay game as well. It was a huge relief for us,
Being named captain for the Socceroos at the first World Cup since 1974, that must have been a huge honour. But at the same time too, it was weighing on your mind was that, you're good mates with Craig Moore.
Yeah.
Was that hard to take that?
It was. I think, to be honest, Craig Moore probably deserved to be captain more than me. At the time he was injured, we were playing the qualifying games and he wasn't involved. Gus came to me before, it was the day before a qualifier or something like that. And he said, look, I'd like you to be captain, and it's a huge honour. To be honest, I'm not one of those guys who says, whose dreams about being captain of anything really. I'm not really that type of. I just love playing the football. To be honest, being captain is more of a burden than for me because I'm late for everything. Team meetings and all that sort of stuff, and now I have to be early. If I didn't have Josip Skorka in the room with me, I would have come late to each meeting, each of those team meetings, and dinner and lunch, and I would have been fined so much, I wanted to be part of the team. I wanted to be part of the, that atmosphere that was there and all that. Actually, I probably would have been more comfortable Craig being captain, being a defender, but Gus made that decision, and I said, I'll take it, no problem.
What would have happened if that game went to extra time against Italy?
Well, we were hoping it was going to go to the extra time in Italy. I mean, I think it probably would have panned out differently. Maybe yes, maybe no. But I think that the way that we got kicked out left a bad taste in our mouth, because when I look at it even today, I don't think it was a penalty. I think it was a tackle. Maybe Lucas committed a little bit too much, but he also dived. So.
Mark, what happened at the Asian Cup in 2007? There's a lot of conflicting reports. What happened in that dressing room?
What happened? I think some people came to that Asian Cup thinking more about themselves than they did about the national team.
Why?
Why? Because there's people who value themselves very highly and think more about their television rights and deals and all that than actually playing for their country. That was the main reason. That was the main reason I stopped playing for the national team. My problem was that my generation of players that I grew up with were a different breed of the newer generation. And to be honest, I wasn't a big fan of the newer generation of players. A lot of them were more interested in their, how many deals they were having on the side, through sponsorship and all that sort of stuff, and getting their heads on television and things like that, than actually playing for the national team.
Do you feel that your captaincy was undermined? Do you feel that whole Asian
I think
Cup...
definitely. I think Lucas Neill at that stage came to that Asian Cup not in a good state of mind because of the fact that Graham Arnold had offered him the captaincy because he wasn't sure whether I was going to come to the Asian Cup or not. And then once I was at the Asian Cup, either he wasn't brave enough to tell me that I wasn't captain anymore or whatever, and I felt that Lucas Neill was sulking that whole Asian Cup through the pre-season, through the preparations for it, and through the Asian Cup, and it affected other players. I think Lucas tried to undermine me. I think his priority was to be captain more because of his other activities he had off the pitch rather than actually on the pitch stuff. That's my opinion. You have people running football in Australia who don't have a clue about football, and they don't want to get older players involved who actually have that experience, who have been in those situations in front of 100,000 people when the shit hits the fan. What are they going to do? People who have experience in the highest level of football and they're not using it. Whether that's their own insecurities, because if some Paul Ocon, Ned Zelic or something like that comes to a guy who knows nothing about football, but he's been in that system for many years and he's got himself to a level, one of his sentences means more than a whole year of work of these other guys.
Your thoughts on Graham Arnold? Do you like him?
Do I like him? He's all right.
Is he a good coach?
Look, I can only judge him. From the days before, and he was at the stage when he was learning. He's done really well with Sydney, but hopefully he's learnt a lot from the days of when he coached the national team at that thingo, especially man management.
Do you feel that Australian football's lost its way a bit?
I think there's a big gap in terms of player development. I think that's a big problem. I think we're not producing players like we used to, even though the league wasn't maybe as developed as it is today. There's a big problem in the development of players. Obviously, if you look 10, 15, 20 years back, we had a lot of players in big clubs, in big leagues, and not just fringe players. We had main players, There's a reason for that. It's not just one golden generation, because you had other players who weren't even involved sometimes with the national team. There's something missing with the player development. I think that when they did the A-League, they concentrated more on getting the league set up, but this junior system that actually developed players, I don't think they paid enough attention to. I was very disappointed to hear that the AOS was closed down for the football section. That I can vouch for myself and many other players. That actually prepared us for the next level.
I spoke with Chris Niku, the FFA chairman, and he said, with all due respect, the two best Socceroo players didn't go to the AIS, as in Harry Kewell and Tim Cahill.
Yeah. Well, it just shows you what type of people are running the football in that country. That comment just tells you everything. Because those two players went overseas at a young age. They weren't even developed in Australia. They were developed in academies in England where they have proper setups. Leeds was a very exciting time. I came to Leeds. I knew Harry Kewell already then. Danny Milosevic was there from Australia as well. Jacob Burns came there. The young players at the club were high quality, We had Lee Bowyer, we had Woodgate, we had Ian Hart, top quality players, and we just used to overrun teams. We had so much energy.
Michael Bridges mentioned to me that you were always exempt from doing the warm downs the next day.
I wasn't always. That was just that one time. People exaggerate. Bridgie exaggerates. I slept in. It was after a Champions League game. We qualified for the next stage of the Champions League against Lazio. We had to start at 10 or something, and I woke up at 5 minutes to 10, and I just chucked on a tracksuit. I don't even know which one it was. I think it was blue. I chucked it on, and I put some tracksuit pants on, and I drive into the training session, and I see they're already out doing starting the warm up. So instead, what I did was I just parked the car next to the pitch, jumped the fence, and started doing the warm down with them in my tracksuit. And then I had keys and a mobile phone, and all you could hear was like everything jiggling, And then I did the session with my hands in my pocket, so it wouldn't be jiggling around,
You didn't get away with it, did you?
I did actually. I did.
Is it sad the way you nearly reached the European Cup final, and all of a sudden the club's in trouble out of nowhere?
Yeah. I mean, nobody had a clue. The players, none of the players had a clue. We thought everything was. We thought everything was, in order. Obviously, nobody thinks about. They run the financial part of it, and it was our job to do it on the pitch. And then all of a sudden, one by one, they had to start selling players, and then it turned into a really, really desperate situation. When Peter Reid came, I had no problems at all with him. Later on, my biggest problem with him was that he realised what the situation was, and he was looking for a scapegoat, and that scapegoat was me. And he knew that they didn't have any money. My biggest problem with him was that he was very dishonest towards me, in a way.
You feel that you saved his job and then he let you down?
Well, in a way, yeah. I mean, the season before then I scored, I think it was 15 goals in 10 games, and we stayed up. The next season, to be honest, I don't think he had the capacity to be the coach at the time. But the way he actually conducted himself towards me, all I expect from managers and from people in general is to tell me honestly what they think. And I'll tell them honestly what I think. I read an interview with him making an excuse about his time at Leeds, saying that he had a go at me and that I couldn't take any criticism. I can take as much credit. All my life I've been taking criticism, no problems. I just can't take dishonesty.
Player agents, they can make a lot of money out of players.
Exactly.
And a lot of them do the wrong thing.
Of course. I mean, player agents depends. There are some good ones, it's like journalists. There are some good ones who have ethics, and some that don't. I had a problem with Bernie Mandic. Bernie was my agent when he took me from Celtic to Leeds.
So this, I suppose, in a roundabout way, makes more sense in regards to the relationship you had with Harry Kewell.
Exactly. Well, with Bernie, I would have thought that Bernie had been in H's ear the whole time. Just in case, I would have told him about what happened between me and him, And I think maybe our relationship at Leeds wasn't that good, because I can't say for sure that that's it, but I think he probably affected the way that he viewed me, definitely.
Do you talk now with Harry?
Yeah, no problem. I think Harry's been burnt by him as well.
Tell us about your Elton John experience.
At one stage, Elton and I had the same agent in the UK, and then he invited me and actually Jacob Burns, who everyone knows in Australia. Burnsy, we were playing at Leeds at the time, to a concert in Manchester, and we went, and he took us backstage and into his dressing room and all that sort of stuff. And the loveliest bloke you'll ever meet, really nice guy, and we met him, and we had a drink with him. He was chatting to us about all these, he knew every single sport in Australia. He knew the Aussie rules results. He knew, and he was asking me the Aussie rules results. I didn't even know him. He invited us while he was playing to backstage, and all of a sudden he starts dedicating this song to me in this stadium in Manchester in front of 20,000 people. He started to dedicate this song for me, and it was actually a real surreal moment.
What was the song?
Don't laugh. You know what the song was.
Not the Lion King.
It was a good song.
But the funny thing about it, it was in Manchester. At the time, you were nearly going to sign for Manchester United. Is that right?
At the time, Manchester were interested in signing me, Man U, and it was sort of in the air. With transfers, it's always like that. There's interest, and the clubs have to agree terms and things like that. It ended up not happening, but I had a chance to join AC Milan. That was at the after the 2001 season when we got to the semi-final of the Champions League, and the club was negotiating with Milan, and they wanted £38 million. Leeds wanted £38 million, and because I was friends with Zvonimir Boban at the time, and we were sort of negotiating terms through him, and in the end, Leeds. They offered them £38 million, and Leeds didn't want to sell, and that was that. And I was a huge AC Milan fan as a kid. I grew up watching Van Basten and Rijkaard, Gullit. I loved AC Milan. They were my favourite team.
If there was a time you could be transported back to in your career, when would it be?
You know what? There's so many moments. Everybody automatically says that the Leeds, the four goals against Liverpool. But I had moments kicking the ball in the backyard with my old man, I would say. But that's the answer.